You're watching the ANEC Sports Podcast on YouTube. The show starts right now. Welcome to episode 23 of the ANEC Sports Podcast. My name is Sam Frick. I am the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, covering 30 schools across Northeast Indiana and parts of Elkhart County. That includes the ACAC, the NECC, and the Northeast 8. And so we are now officially in full swing postseason mode for boys wrestling and for girls basketball. And for girls wrestling, it is the official end of the girls wrestling season as the team state finals took place the following weekend ago, not last weekend, but 2 weekends ago. Jay County took third place in the team state finals, which are held separately from the IHSAA. And for those that don't know, and if you haven't noticed already on ANEC Sports and from all other media outlets, we had 4 state champions that were crowned in girls wrestling: Rain Trineri and Nevaeh Wilson of Garrett, Isabel Campo of New Haven, and then Mallory Winter of Jay County. You will hear my interview with Mallory Winter later on the show. And so, without further ado, let's get into the talk around the corner. And we begin with wrestling. So, over the weekend, boys wrestling had the state tournament going underway for sectional play. And just for those that forgot about the previous weekend, we did have our conference champions. Adams Central edged off Jade County to win the ACAC. Garrett repeated as NECC champions over, pretty sure it was over Angola and East Side. And then the Northeast State, New Haven, won their first conference championship since the year 1970, the first ever in the Northeast 8. And so now let's take a look at the boys wrestling sectionals, what took place over the weekend. I know Belmont represented very well in their sectionals, but before we go into the Jay County section, we first need to look at briefly with the Elkhart sectional, hosted by Elkhart, obviously, and Fairfield was the lone ANEC area school to represent the sectional. Northwood won the sectional championship. I actually should go ahead and share the screen here first. Make no sense to not share it. So give me just a moment here. I got a little ahead of myself there. There we go. So in the Elkhart sectional, Northwood took care of the sectional. Won by the Northwood Panthers. And Northridge took second at 171. Elkhart third, 144.5. Fairfield took seventh at 89 points. But the big takeaway for Fairfield, Brecton Marin of the Fairfield Falcons did win a sectional championship in this particular field. And I want to make sure I find it real quickly here. Give me just a moment. So I can find Brecton's weight class. Here we go. Brecton Marin of the 190-pound weight class won a sectional championship by a 4-1 decision over parts of Northridge, Austin parts. And so Brecton Marin has advanced to the regional round. And Brecton Marin has had a great season for the Fairfield Falcons. Take a look at the West Noble sectional. Garrett, actually not Garrett, excuse me. Over the East Noble sectional, East Noble won the sectional over the Angola Hornets, 215.5 to 203.5. Prairie Heights took third at 186. The Calvin fourth at 163.5. As you can see here, let me go ahead and zoom this just a little bit here. So we had, let's see, Carter Shagad of Angola took the 106 brackets in 113, and Charlie Fleshman of Central Noble. 120 went to Quinnell Gabriel of Lakeland. Bear with me here, it's a little slow. Here we go. 126, we had Cameron Straw of Angola winning a thriller. 132 went to Drew Walden of DeKalb. 138 went to Andrew Wilson of East Noble. 144 went to Brody Hagewood of Prairie Heights. Dallas Davison of Angola took the 150 sectional championship. Brock Hagewood of Prairie Heights took the 157 sectional championship. Tegan Klaus of West Knoll took the 165 sectional championship. Dominic Dunn of DeKalb took the 175-pound state championship. 190 went to Dylan Krell of East Noble. Has had a great senior year so far. Brady Long of DeKalb took the 215. And then lastly, in 285, that title went to Parker Boots of Central Noble. So a lot of DeKalb represented well in the sectional. A lot of East Noble, Angola. DeKalb did well in the sectional. Prairie Heights had some representation. So obviously in the regional round, we're going to see a lot of East Noble and Angola, definitely in the regional rounds, and as well as Prairie Heights and DeKalb have all advanced to regionals. Actually, no, I don't think DeKalb advanced. I think as a team. I think Prairie Heights advanced. Yeah, Prairie Heights advanced as a team. So let's see here. Taking a look at the Carroll sectional. This is where Garrett's at. And Garrett once again wins another sectional championship with 268.5 points. Carroll taking second at 223. And Carroll Eastside took third at 214. Columbia City fifth at 151.5. Let me go ahead and zoom this again here. 106. Let's see. That went to Joseph Warner of Carroll against Ramon Sierra of Garrett. 113. Abram Swathwood of Garrett won that sectional. 120 went to Caleb Asa of Garrett. Let's see, 126. Another Garrett wrestler won a sectional championship here. That's Cameron Baker. 132. This time it's Noah Dove of Eastside winning this sectional. 138 went to Lane Snyder of Eastside. Again, Eastside a nice sectional as well. 144 went to Tanner Ellis of Columbia City. 150 went to Lincoln Carter, another Eastside wrestler with a sectional championship. Again, it's been a nice year for Eastside Wrestling, who's quietly been overlooked here this year just because of the success of the Garrett Railroaders. Speaking of Garrett, Brian Barrett won a sectional for them. 165 went to Ethan Fike of Eastside. 175 was Jonas Richmond of the Blazers. 190, Job Richmond. 215, Aiden Hunt of Garrett. And then lastly, in 285, it went to Jacob Reynolds of the Garrett Railroaders. So again, a lot of Garrett, a lot of Eastside winning their sectionals. Carroll also did pretty well as well. So those three definitely had a strong showing in that sectional. The New Haven sectional, mostly Homestead, mostly New Haven. Homestead took the sectional as a team with 278.5 points. New Haven second at 259. Leo took fourth at 100. Snyder third at 222.5. So let's see here. So 106, Juliana Ocampo, the lone female wrestler on this New Haven boys team. She remains undefeated. She wins the sectional over Camden Raypool of Homestead. 113, Bakari Cooper won that sectional for New Haven. 120, Timmy Rocha won the sectional for New Haven. 126, Sean Harris, once again from New Haven, winning that sectional. So New Haven did very well early on. Obviously, Homestead would eventually win some sectionals of their own. There you see Malachi Thoner, the freshman, winning the 138 sectional. That was impressive. Let's see here. 150 went to Easton Doster, the defending state champion from last year. He won a sectional. And then let's see here. Again, another Homestead wrestler winning a sectional here. You have a Snyder wrestler, Dallas Woodson, in 165. Jay Thrash of Homestead won this 175, as well as one. And then Bear won the 190 for Homestead. You had another Snyder wrestler here. And then Caleb Evans wrapped up the sectional in 285 for Homestead. But obviously, New did quite well. The Peru sectional saw Huntington North is the lone member here in this sectional. They took fifth place. North Miami, won the sectional rather easily at 239.5. And looking at, I actually have not looked at this sectional. I actually, for some reason, missed this one. So apologies for that. So this is my first actual glance at these pairings here, but obviously North Miami dominate the sectional, as you could tell by the stats here. Lots of North Miami here. Let's see. I just want to make sure I'm not forgetting anybody here. I think it's mostly North Miami. Let's see. Yeah, no sectional champions from Huntington North this year, but obviously did a decent job overall, and we'll see how things go from there in the regional. Let's see. Then we get to the Jay County sectional. I've heard that Belmont had over a dozen, or actually they had a dozen wrestlers that went to regionals. They won the sectional with 250.5 points, edging out Adams Central at 230. Jay County, 208 in third place. South Adams in fourth at 193. Bluffton in fifth at 141.5. And the Norwell in sixth place. So basically, the ANEC schools did very, very well in this sectional. I'm going to try to go through here pretty quick here. Jacob Beininger won the 106 for Belmont. 113 went to Griffin Byram of Jay County. 120 went to Levi Johns of Bluffton. 126 Dakota Sprunner of South Adams. 132 went to Will Patton, also from South Adams. 138 went to Dylan Ogg of Adams Central. 144 went to AJ Heskett of Jay County. 150 went to Brayson Shortkin of Adams Central. 157 went to his teammate Maverick Dubuck of Adams Central. 165 Gavin Davis of Belmont. 175 went to West Somerset of South Adams. 190 Xavier Palacios of Belmont. 215 went to Jake Boots of Bluffton. And lastly, in the 285, Grady Baker of Belmont. All won the sectional. So again, the ANEC schools did exceptionally well in the sectional, as we mentioned multiple times already. And I believe that is all for these wrestlers. So keep in mind the regionals will take place this Saturday, February the 8th. And so as you can see here, these are all the regional sites for this Saturday. So Goshen will be the regional site for the feeders of Elkhart and West Noble sectionals. The Carroll regional will be the feeder site for Carroll sectional and the New Haven sectional. Peru will be the regional site for the Peru and Oak Hill sectionals. Jay County will be a regional site for the Delta and Jay County sectional winners and participants from those sectionals. So we will keep our eyes posted on these participants as they look to punch their ticket to semi-states, which will take place 1 week from Saturday on the 15th of February. And obviously the one that we will have our eyes on for sure will be the Allen County War Memorial Coliseum sites, which is the Fort Wayne semi-state. All of our ANEC area regionals will be feeding off of this semi-state. So there's one place for all of our coverage will take place in Fort Wayne, Indiana that day. But before you get there, you got to get through regionals first, which is on the 8th of February. We now take a look at basketball, and we will begin with girls basketball. Let's get things off with the ACAC. And again, as mentioned earlier, the ACAC girls tournament title was already wrapped up way earlier than last week, but we do want to see how things shaped out as we get ready for the state tournament. Keep in mind, if you haven't noticed already, the ANEC Sports YouTube page, we have a video preview that me and then a co-guest host, Mason Asher, got to break down all 64 sectionals. So you'll see a full in-depth sectional analysis and predictions there. I will go a little more specific on the area sectionals over the next day or so, and it'll be much shorter because this video essentially takes care of all of my work, basically. I just need to add a few more things and then just add my analysis and go from there. But anyway, let's get things off with girls basketball. We begin with the ACAC. The Bluffton Tigers enter the sectionals. Enter sectional play at 21-2, 6-0 in conference play. Most wins ever for the Bluffton Tigers. program after winning the first ever ACAC championships. Dudkers picked up his 300th win in that win over the Manchester Squires back on the 30th, 86-51. Just a balanced performance there for the Bluffton Tigers. Again, the game itself is not as relevant as the fact that Dudkers did get his 300th win, and it's just a way for the Bluffton Tigers to get ready for the state tournament, which on Tuesday, their sectional will be hosted by Bluffton themselves. They will be a host of this sectional, which is 2A sectional 36. Some takeaways from this past week. I mean, Woodland obviously showed some decent moments this week with the 51-47 win against Central Noble, where the Woodland Warriors held up at Fury Central Rally, showed some nice promise there in that win for the Cougars, despite the fact that Woodland struggled immensely in the second half shooting the basketball and then ended up dominating Prairie Heights 55-34. They're part of that Bluffton sectional as well. Adams Central had a pretty busy week, but nonetheless, they struggled with some pretty high-quality competition. Concordia beat them 66-39. The Marion came along, and it's the Marion team on the rise, per se, and they're a team that should have a nice future here in the next couple of years for the Marion Giants. So they lost to them by 8 points, 58-50. And then they lost to Blackhawk Christian by 4, 61-57. They will be taking on Bishop Lures on Tuesday, the reigning 2A state champions. We'll talk more about these pairings in separate videos. Heritage fell short to New Haven 53-47 on Thursday. These two schools will meet again in sectional play on Tuesday at Norwell in 3A22. Southern Wells finally got off their schneid with the 67-25 win over Westdale on the Thursday. They got a tough matchup against North Miami on Wednesday, February the 5th. But yeah, that's all I really have. I mean, Jay County did lose to Norwell 89-34. That's quite insignificant, though. Let's see here. Lakewood Park had a nice week as well. They, excuse me, they will enter sectional play. Winners of the last 4 games, 16 sits overall, which is the most wins ever for Lakewood Park girls basketball, according to Jared Eastep, who picked up his 51st win of the season of his career at Lakewood Park, as a head coach. They defeated Blackhawk 61-53 in overtime, and then defeated Wayne 55-46 and Lakewood Christian 46-30. Again, a lot of their success at Lakewood Park will hinge on what happens with their matchup with Fremont and whether or not Ava McGray can do, well, Ava McGray things against a really good Fremont team. But that's all I have for now on that. In the Hoosier Plains Conference, Bethany Christian is winless. Is a winless team no more in terms of losing as of late. They have not won a game since November 7th, prior to, well, a couple weeks ago. But now they enter sectional play. Winners of 3 of the last 5. But again, they didn't really get the best of draws, of course, because they will be waiting the winner of Fremont and Lakewood Park on Friday, February 7th, hosted by Bethany Christian. They did pick up wins over South Bend Career Academy, Hamilton, and Trinity Greenlawn over the past couple of weeks to allow the Bruins to find some momentum entering the state tournament. It did help that Carly Kroom is back with the Bruins after suffering an injury. That certainly played a role into the Bruins' recent success there. Let's see here. And the Hamilton losers of the last 9 entering sectional play as well. Taking a look at the Northeast State, the Belmont Braves, they clinched an outright NEA championship on Friday with a dominant win over Leo, 53-22. Emily Blakey had 17 points and scored her 1,000th career point in the process as the Belmont Braves win their first outright NEA championship since 2018-19. It's their third conference championship since the NEA was formed in 2015-16. Belmont will have the bye, and they'll wait the winner of New Haven and Heritage at Norwell. For Columbia City, they've won their last 5 games, just like Belmont. They have some nice wins in the process, including wins over Huntington North, DeKalb, the previous week, and then this past week, they had a nice win at Northwood 57-42 before dominating New Haven 80-22. They drew Northwood for a matchup on Tuesday, hosted by Fairfield in 3A Sectional 20. And then for Norwell, they've won their last 4 games. In fact, they are scoring at least 75 points in each of their last 4 games. Granted, the competition is not particularly great, but nevertheless, Norwell looking very strong going into the sectional play, hosted by Norwell in 3A22, 83-25 win over New Haven, where Macy Salford had 29 points and made 6 triples. Defeated Leo 75-25, where Vanessa Rossworm had 26 points in that contest, followed by an additional 26 points in the 89-34 win over Jay County. And then they wrapped up NEA play on Friday with an 81-41 win at East Noble. Huntington North, 13-9 on the season, and they snapped a 3-game losing skid on Friday with a 35-30 win over DeKalb in Waterloo. Lucy Reich had 14 points to help the Vikings defeat the Barons. They got a tough sectional, but they will play Southside on Friday at Homestead. Excuse me. As for DeKalb, they enter sectional play, losers of the last 4 games, although many see them as a favorite, but they're going to have to get off their losing schneid fast as they take on the Garrett Railroaders on Wednesday in the Concordia sectional, 3A sectional 21. This is a rematch from December 14th, where DeKalb defeated Garrett 43-28. And then East Noble is also in that sectional. They did pretty well. I mean, they won 3 in a row before the loss to Norwell, including a win over Leo 46-42 at the Lions Den. East Noble playing some good ball as of late, but they got a tough sectional ahead as the East Noble Knights looking for their first sectional since 2016. As for DeKalb, their arch nemesis, the DeKalb Barons, they have not won a sectional championship since the year 2006. I believe Doug Curtis was the coach of that team. And also Leo is a part of that sectional as well. They've lost their last 4 games, losing to East Noble, Norwell, Dwenger, and then Belmont. In the process, they have the bye, and they will wait the winner of Dwenger and Angola on Friday, the 7th, at the Concordia sectional, which is 3A21. In the NECC, again, a couple weeks ago, Eastside did take care of business with an outright conference championship. They destroyed Central Noble 58-23 that day, followed by Westview coming back to defeat the Fairfield Falcons 46-40 in a stunner to allow the Blazers to win their first conference championship in 1992 and their first outright championship and outright sweep of the NECC. Eastside wrapped up the conference with an undefeated season in the NECC by defeating Westview 62-40 on Thursday. They have the bye, and they will wait the winner of Central Noble and Lakeland on Friday, hosted by Central Noble in 2A Sectional 35. For Fairfield, they came off a pretty tough win by defeating Bethany Christian on Monday, 51-30. Lost to Northwood the next day, 35-28. They're in that same sectional, by the way. And they also defeated another sectional rival in West Noble, 47-29, to conclude NECC play. They have the bye, and they will wait the winner of West Noble and Tippy Valley on Friday, hosted by Fairfield in 3A20. Central Noble had a pretty rough losing streak before the against Churubusco on Friday. They had lost 4 in a row and losses to Eastside in the tourney play, Fairfield, Eastside again in the regular season, and then lost to Woodland by 4 points, despite a miraculous comeback in the fourth quarter. But Central Noble did get out of the losing schneid at the right time, a 52-40 win over Churubusco, where Cadence Bales had 13 points in the process. It's been an up and down season for the Central Noble Cougars, but all that changes now in sectional play as they take on Lakeland for a 3rd time on Tuesday, hosted by Central Noble themselves. Excuse me. And then we'll go ahead and go through here. Angola has lost 2 in a row. They had a pretty tough week playing 2 high-quality teams in Belmont and Warsaw. They lost to both teams by roughly 45 points on average, 46, 47 points. To Belmont, 70-22, and then the Warsaw, 74-27. They drew Bishop Dwenger, a rematch from the 25th, and that will be taking place at Concordia on Tuesday. And then lastly, we want to take a look at the Fremont Eagles here. They've won 4 in a row, entering sectional play with dominant wins over Lakeland, Prairie Heights, Garrett, and then Lakeland again in the regular season. Annie Pard during this winning streak picked up her 1,000 point against Prairie Heights on the 25th in that 55-22 win, making her the fourth Fremont Lady Eagle to reach 1,000 career points. Fremont has a very difficult matchup on Tuesday at Bethany Christian in 1A52 in a rematch from all the way back to November the 12th, where Fremont won that game 62-44 at Lakewood Park. And then lastly, let's take a look at the TRC. What looks like an outright conference championship was in the works for the Whitko Wildcats. Well, Northfield had other plans. Whitko went into the final week with an opportunity to win the conference outright for the first time ever. They did defeat McConaughey 64-34 on the 23rd. However, 2 nights later, they lost to Northfield in overtime 70-67 to spoil Whitko's undefeated season in the conference and forcing the Whitko Wildcats to share the conference with Wabash. So Whitko does repeat as conference champions for the first time ever, but they will have to settle for a share with the Wabash Apaches. Meanwhile, though, however, they did respond nicely with 3 consecutive wins over Bishop Luers, 71-68 in overtime. Lakeland Christian, 48-27 at East LCA. And then they defeated Wawasee on Thursday, 63-53. However, they drew a difficult first-round match against Woodland on Tuesday, where they'll have to travel to Bluffton to take on the Woodland Warriors, led by Alyssa Anderson. That will be a very difficult matchup for the Whitko Wildcats to try to contain the 5'11 junior big Alyssa Anderson. Also, we want to give our congratulations to the Wabash Apaches who win their first TRC championship since 2014. Although they need some help to share that conference, they did win out the rest of the way, including a 63-50 win, I should say, over Northwestern, and then a 47-44 win 3 nights prior against Lewis Cass. So Wabash did deserve that share as well. Wabash will be playing Oak Hill in the 2A38 sectional hosted by Lewis Cass, a team that went all the way to semi-state last season. We shift over to boys basketball, and now we begin with let's see ACAC for now. Let's go to the Hoosier Plains Conference. So Bethany Christian enters the final month of the season. They're 4-0 in conference play, 8-9 overall. They are coming off a loss back on Friday against Wawasee, 60-57. They've lost 3 of the last 4, but I think that's to be expected when you're playing a schedule as difficult as Bethany Christian is. I mean, for a 1A school, they do play a pretty difficult schedule, the Bethany Christian Bruins are, but the important thing for them right now is they are leading in the the Hoosier Plains Conference with 1 conference game left that will take place on the 21st at Trinity Greenlawn. Their next game will be February 3rd when they travel to Central Noble tomorrow night. It will actually be played at Wolf Lake. So they'll be going back to Central Noble's original home tomorrow night. So Bethany girls played there earlier this year. So now the Bethany boys are traveling to the Wolf Den in Wolf Lake Elementary, what used to be called Wolf Lake Elementary. They will be playing Central Noble at Wolf Lake. That's the only game Bethany has this week. Keep in mind, with girls basketball sectionals, teams are very limited on when they'll be able to play the boys' games because there's so few dates that are available during sectionals week. Hamilton has lost 10 in a row going into the final month of the season. They came very close. They came very close this past week with losses at the hands of Clinton Christian, 37-34 the 28th of January. They also had a 10-point loss to Oak Farm Montessori, 43-33, and then an 18-point loss to Canterbury on the 1st of February, 48-30. They have 2 games this week. They travel to winless Eastside on February the 6th, an old rival from the NECC. And then on February 8th, they'll play another winless team. This time they'll host Southern Wells. So this is a prime opportunity for Hamilton to pick up their second win or even possibly get 3 wins on the season. So they could potentially get 2 wins this week if things go their way for the Hamilton Marines. We then let's go to the north. Let's actually go to the TRC. Let's go to TRC here. remains in first place. They are 15-1 overall. They've won 14 in a row, 5-0 in conference play with just 4 conference games to go. They are coming off wins over Adams Central and Churubusco, 67-41, which I think that one's a little more impressive for Manchester. And then a 69-34 win over the Churubusco Eagles. They do have a conference game coming up this week when they host the Northfield Norse for the Manchester Squires. For the perspective of Whitco, they have lost 3 in a row. They are 4-12 overall, 2-4 in conference play. They are coming off a 46-43 loss at Peru on Friday, following a 2-point loss the next night, 31-29 at South Adams. They have one more road game this week when they travel to North Miami. And then on the 14th and 15th, they'll have home games against Northwestern and LaVille. Let's shift over to the Northeast Quarter Conference. And the NECC has gone a little bit wild now since we last talked about the NECC. Before Friday, Lakeland entered the NECC on Friday, 5-0 in conference play. Now, keep in mind the Lakers came in losing their last 2 games, falling to... Actually, they came into this week with a 2-game winning streak, but they lost to East Noble 53-48 at Kindleville, and then they lost to Garrett on Friday 54-50 at Garrett. Just last night, or actually technically be 2 nights ago now, they lost to Wawasee at the buzzer 39-37 at Lakeland. This is the season worst 3-game losing streak, and this is that adversity that I think Lakeland was probably going to expect at some point, considering their schedule is pretty difficult for the Lakers, so they'll have to get off the schneid this week. They have a home game against Churubusco on Thursday, looking to get back on track in the NECC before a critical conference matchup 1 week from this Friday when they travel to Central Noble. Meanwhile, for the Westview Warriors, they have won 6 in a row, and I saw something where Westview has won every game by an average margin of 24 points or 25 points, something along those lines. But they've been completely dominant since the NECC tournament, and just this past week, they shredded Garrett and Eastside by a combined score of 135-61. So they completely shredded both of these teams, especially with Garrett, which are having a nice season for the Garrett Railroaders. So Westview continues to be dominant this season. A team that's scoring just under 60 points, giving up just 45. They do have a massive matchup in the NECC on Thursday when they travel to Ligonier to take on the West Noble Chargers. That is a massive, massive game for NECC implications for the Westview Warriors and the West Noble Chargers, who both come in tied for first place. They have Blackhawk on the road on Saturday after the West Noble game. Speaking of West Noble, they are 8-7, 6-1 in conference play. They've won 4 of their last 5 games, which includes close wins over DeKalb, 48-36, and at Fairfield, 58-50. Jordan Ish scored a double-double in both of these games, 10 points, 10 rebounds against DeKalb, and 19 points and 10 rebounds against Fairfield. Again, they will host Westview on Thursday for the NECC game of the week. And then on Saturday, they traveled west to LaVille to take on the Lancers. Keep in mind, they have a good long-time sectional rival in Northwood on the 11th of February. And then a week from Saturday, they will host Columbia City for their final home game of the season. Crazy. Meanwhile, the Angola Hornets are also 6-1 in conference play. They're 10-5 overall. They've won 6 of their last 8 games. This past week, they played 2 games. Take that back. They had just the 1 game this past week, and they defeated the Fairfield Falcons 52-39 to stay alive in the NECC race. That was their first game since the 24th of January. They do have 1 game this week when they travel to Concordia on Thursday, but their next conference game in the NECC will not take place until February 21st when they travel to Eastside. But they do have 2 major conference games left in their schedule, with West Noble and Lakeland looming. We expect those 2 to be critical, or if not vital, for NECC title implications. Let's see here. And then Garrett comes in 14-4 4-2 in conference play. Yes, they had the loss to Westview on the 28th of January, but they did bounce back nicely with a 54-50 win over the Lakeland Lakers, led by Isaiah Keene's 21 points and 13 rebounds. I think he was held to 2 points in the 28th meeting with Westview, in the January 28th meeting with Westview. So that's a nice bounce back for him and for the Big Train. They do have a conference game coming up on Thursday when they travel to Benton to take on the Fairfield Falcons. That is a massive game for Garrett as they look to stay alive in the NECC race. They have to win this conference game if they want to have a realistic shot of a conference championship. And that's pretty much all I have in terms of relevance for the NECC race. Let's take a look at, let's go ahead and take a look at the Wild West of the ACAC. As you know, when it comes to this conference, you never know what can happen in the Wild West of the ACAC. You think you know the conference, and now you don't. Now, keep in mind, you see the standings in the ACAC. Bluffton stands in first place in this conference, 4-1 conference play, 8-5 overall. By default, it's only because they have 4 conference wins. Woodland has a game in hand in the conference race. So Woodland right now has the tiebreaker over Bluffton, Heritage, and Jane County. The only team that had a tiebreaker over Woodland, Adams Central, they were eliminated on Friday thanks to a miraculous comeback win by the Heritage Patriots on Friday, 67-66 in the ANEC game of the week. This was a 60-42 Adams Central lead with 3:40 to go in the contest, and then Heritage used a 25-6 run in the final 3:40 of the game to pull off the crazy win for the Heritage Patriots. Landon Linebarger sealed it at the free throw line with 3 seconds left to complete a rare comeback. One of the greatest comebacks in ACAC history, no question about it. And when we look back at this race, that might have been the game that might have iced the Woodland Warriors of a conference championship. Now, they still have to win out their conference games. The conference has not been decided just yet. But with Bluffton staying alive in the conference race, they still need help from South Adams or Southern Wells to stay alive, to keep Bluffton's hopes of a conference championship. Now, Bluffton is still alive in the conference race because Declan Greaser hit a 3 from the corner with 1 second left to defeat the Jane County Patriots 47-46. That's coming off the fact they had a thrilling win the week prior against Adams Central, 49-46, and then followed that up by defeating Madison Grant on the 1st, which is Saturday, 48-41. They have a home game against Eastbrook on Thursday, and then on Saturday at Heritage will be the ACAC game of the week. Now, this is a game that's vital for Bluffton to stay alive mathematically, for hoping to get anything out of this conference. But obviously, if Bluffton's going to win anything in the conference, they also need some help from South Adams, to which Woodland is going to be taking on the South Adams Starfires 2 nights prior on the 6th when Woodland travels to the Stardome. Now, keep in mind, South Adams, they're 5-9 now, but they have a win over Blackford, 53-49. If you look at Blackford's record, they're 11-7. So South Adams is not a pushover by any stretch of the imagination. And when you have a player like Titus Slayman who can put up 20, 25 points in a game, you just cannot underestimate what South Adams can do. I would say they're probably the real last chance of any hopes for Bluffton or for Heritage. So if Woodland defeats South Adams, barring some inspirational all-time comeback win for Southern Wells, I don't know how they're going to do that, but I don't think there's any chance. I don't know if there's really any chance of Bluffton or Heritage coming back and winning the conference if Woodland defeats South Adams. Now, again, easier said than done. I think South Adams will be a pretty tough matchup for the Woodland Warriors, but anyway, again, Woodland controls controls destiny at this point. Keep in mind that Woodland controls destiny. Excuse me. By the way, congratulations to Trey Yoder as he scored his 1,000 points in the win over Lakewood Park on Thursday, 61-29 at Lakewood Park. They have a game at Northrop tomorrow night, or technically tonight, at the time of this recording, at 7:30 p.m. at Northrop. They'll be at South Adams on Thursday, and then at Southside on Saturday. They'll wrap up the ACAC on the 14th. And let's see here. Also, want to give a nice shout out for Adams Central. Despite the fact they had that devastating loss to Heritage on Friday, they didn't use that as an excuse. The next night, they came into Tipton, and they dominate the Tipton Blue Devils 63-46. Trace Mahler with a career high of 40 points in that contest to lead the Jets to victory lane for their first win in 4 games. They had a 4-game losing streak prior to that game. The streak snapped at Tipton. They are at Fremont on Thursday and then at Leo on Saturday. And then lastly, we now take a look at the Northeast 8. And this conference continues to amaze me. So now we go into the last month of the season. Columbia City and New Haven are tied for first place in the NEA, 4-1 in conference play. Why do you say that? Columbia City defeated New Haven on Saturday, 65-57. Landon Richmond, 19 points. Stratton Fuller with 15 points. And Owen Marshall ended up with 14. And they thanks to a 21-8 first quarter lead that allowed Columbia City to hang on and hold off a New Haven comeback in the process. Now, keep in mind, nothing has been won yet. Columbia City still has to make sure they win out their conference games. They still have Norwell coming up on Saturday. They'll host Homestead on Wednesday prior to that, and then they'll host Norwell on Saturday. And then after the Riley game on the 11th, they'll travel to Leo on the 14th, which could very well decide whether or not Columbia City shares the Northeast 8 or not, or they win outright. As for New Haven, who's now 9-9 and 4-1 in conference play, again, that loss to Columbia City obviously hurts, but they're still very much in play for a conference share. They have Huntington North on Saturday. That will be our ANEC game of the week. You will hear my interview with Brandon Appleton later on the show. Again, on the 14th of February at East Noble, that game could very well be a major game to decide the Northeast State. So the conference is still far from over for these two schools. Keep in mind, Leo's 3-2 in conference play, so they're still alive in the race. East Noble's 3-2 in conference play. They're still alive in the race, especially thanks to their win over Huntington North, 63-60. And then there's 61-41 or 61-46 win, I should say, at Norwell. And then for Huntington North, they've lost 2 straight with tough losses to East Noble and to DeKalb, 63-60 at East Noble, and then the 65-58 home loss to the DeKalb Barons, who DeKalb had not won a conference game this season prior to that night. So that's obviously an upset win right there. But obviously all eyes are going to be on that Huntington North New Haven game on Saturday, as well as Norwell Columbia City. I think those 2 games will be on everyone's eyes by that point. And so that's going to do it for the talk around the corner. Again, sectionals coverage, I'll break those down more briefly probably tomorrow. And then we will get things underway with sectionals. But for now, let's get to our interviews with Mallory, winner of Jay County, and New Haven head boys basketball coach Brandon Appleton. I'm here with the senior out of Jay County High School, and I guess we can call this a 4-time state champion, Mallory Winner. And I guess the last name sounds fitting given where your high school career has concluded at Jay County High School. But how are things going for you?
I'm doing well.
Talk about the experience now that you've won your 4th straight state championship, and what's kind of your initial reflections now that the senior year has kind of come and gone?
I mean, obviously it feels really, really good to end my senior season as a state champ and to end my senior or my career just in general as a 4-time state champion. But just looking back, like I'm really like happy to have like my friends and my family that have supported me like along the way, and like the coaches and like people to push me, and that's just like really means a lot to me.
I'm sure. Mallory, I do want to go back a little bit on your wrestling career. How long have you been wrestling for, and what kind of inspired you to continue the sports?
So I actually started wrestling when I was probably about like four-ish. My older brother wrestled and he was a four-time state placer in Indiana. And so I was just kind of always around it when I was little. And I finally like just begged my dad because he was my brother's coach. And I just kind of begged him. I was like, Dad, like, will you let me wrestle? And finally, like, he gave in and let me wrestle. And then like my parents just kind of like realized that I was kind of a natural at it and that I was good at it, and I just really loved it and I just kept doing it, and we like wrestled nationally and stuff like that. So it's been a really cool experience.
Talk about your relationship with your brother.
Um, he's always been like my bigger brother that I've always like looked up to. We have another brother. He's my like middle brother, but he never really wrestled, so that was kind of something that I was able to connect with my brother Mason on. And he just kind of like always like we would go to like practices in Indy together, and so like we kind of always just experienced that stuff together. And he was always like there to push me when I like even on like the days where I didn't really feel like, like I really wanted to practice, or days that he didn't want to practice, I was able to push him and kind of just we were able to keep each other on track. And I think that's what really like pushed me to the next level. And I think that's what pushed him to the next level, is that we were always there to like just back each other up, and we always supported each other no matter what.
Hmm. Now, as you know, Jay County has a rich history of wrestling, and obviously with the boys wrestling program having some success, girls wrestling, even before it became a sanctioned sport, has had a lot of success as well. Talk about your relationship with the program, the relationship with Coach Myers, and talk about when was that moment you realized that maybe you had something special going with the Jay County program.
So actually I started wrestling, like I wrestled for like Jay County, like obviously in middle school. And in middle school, like there was no other girls, like it was just me. And I had to wrestle, like, I had to wrestle all the boys. I practiced with the boys. Like it was just kind of normal to me at that point. And then I would say probably like my eighth grade, seventh or eighth grade year, it kind of like the wrestling in Indiana, like it started to kind of like progress, and they started like have a state series, and they kind of started making it a bigger thing. And then my freshman year, they finally decided to let us have like our own room. So we actually are fortunate enough that we have our own room up at the high school. We get to like, we have our own coaches. Even though Myers is like the boys' head coach and the girls' head coach, we were able to like have our own coaching staff that was like in there every day to help coach us. And so like that was actually really, really cool that we got to have our own room. And so it kind of just like once like I saw that our school and that Coach Myers cared enough to like let us have our own room, like I knew that we could really like make something special of our program, and push that other girls that didn't maybe want to wrestle with boys. I think that really was something that like brought a lot of our girls out, is they knew that they didn't have to wrestle with boys and they didn't have to be in the boys room. And I think that's like what really got our numbers up and why we had so much success.
That's very interesting that you mentioned that about this Jay County program because, as you know, girls wrestling with Jay County before it really became kind of this big thing that we're seeing now. It was starting to find those the seeds of success and whatnot. Mary, talk about the experience of what it's been like now that girls wrestling sanctioned, because now you go from you wrestle with the boys, so now you have your own program supported by the IHSAA, and now you're going from wrestling for the state finals in high school campuses to wrestling for for the big stage in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think this year like it's really been a cool year. Like it's been really nice to see, like even like last year, like obviously like the numbers were pretty high last year. Just seeing, like how many more girls jumped in this year because they knew it was sanctioned and that it was its own sport. And like I think like even like the crowd down at the state finals, like there was a lot of people there. Like I think the community like in our state of Indiana, plus like the girls that are wrestling, like everybody's really bought in and like everybody loves it. And I think it's just really cool to see that like our IHSAA finally like gave us the extra boost and put our label on it to make us kind of feel like special and like our own type.
Hmm. Now, I do want to talk to you about what was it like to to win that state finals this year? Because obviously you talked about last year being special, and it was probably special for a variety of different reasons. But I had to imagine this year was a little bit extra just because you're doing it right at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, right in front of a professional arena, and you're doing this with all the eyeballs going right to you and all the other wrestlers. What was it like to win that fourth state championship with this year being as special as it is?
I think this year, like, it really, like, it made it feel special that, like, it wasn't just in, like, normal, like, everyday, like, gym or, like, even, like, Kokomo, like, last year, it was still, like, a kind of, like, a it had, like, its own feel to it, but I think this year, like, it just made it seem, like, really cool 'cause you felt like it literally replicated the boys, like, it felt just like the boys, and I think, like, even if you're not a wrestling fan, like, the boys state finals is just so cool, and so to see, like, the girls kinda be like that, and just to have, like, the big arena and, like, crowd, like, it just was really, really cool, and to, like, get to know that you're gonna be, like, the first ever, like, girls state champion, like, that just, like it just kinda gave you goosebumps a little bit.
Yeah, that is for sure, and a great way to cap off your high school career, doing it in this year being the special year of the being the first year being sanctioned by the IHSAA. But I do want to ask you another question regarding the team state duels, which occurred after the state finals. I think it happened just a couple weeks ago. You had the team state duels with your team who placed third as a team and whatnot. Just talk about the experience of being like to be able to have that nice closure of the season being a special year it was.
I think I really, really liked it. Like it felt like it brought our team like closer together. Like obviously, like yeah, we're close. We spent 4, 5, 6 months together, but it just felt like we all bonded. Like even like in that last like couple weeks, like just like the way that we all came together was just it was incredible. Like it's super nice to know that the community and like the fans and stuff like I said like they support us and they back us up and they allowed us to be able to have like that extra week to kind of come together as a team one last time even after the state finals and like put your final exclamation point like on your season, so that was just like really cool to see and it was just kind of fascinating honestly.
Mm-hmm. This is Mallory Winner, the senior out of Jay County High School, a four-time state champion wrestler for Jay County. I got to make sure I mention that because you are one of the many pioneers that's going to come through with girls wrestling. We'll be talking about 50 years from now, talking about what was it like 50 years ago. And because we're talking about right now in basketball, it's going to happen someday with wrestling. You'll be like, hey, I was that one of the first four-time state champions in the history of girls wrestling. So you never know what could happen with that. But I do want to give one final question to you, and this regards your future. You are committed to play wrestling at the next level, but for those that don't know you, talk about what that next path for your career looks like.
So for like people that don't really know like the wrestling community, kind of like college, like it's like girls wrestling obviously in high school, but in college too is like one of the fastest growing sports. And so in college, like we've really just seen it like just boom here recently. And like a lot of people like especially like other sports like basketball and football and stuff like that like they really look at like the D1, the D2, the D3, like NAIA stuff like that, but for girls wrestling like that doesn't really matter, like they all wrestle each other. I know one of like the big like what we would call like powerhouses for girls wrestling is Iowa right now, and obviously like they're D1, but with that being said like all your NAIAs, your D3, your D2s, like they still wrestle those schools. So kind of like wrestling at the next level in college, like it's a big deal because you're just like it's not really just like specified to each like group, like you get to wrestle everybody, so that's a really cool opportunity. And like Iowa, they've got a couple like Olympians on their team and stuff like that, so you really get to see like the next level of girls, which is super super cool. So for me, like I'm going to an NAIA school, Rio Grande over in Ohio, but with that being said, like just because they're NAIA doesn't make them any different than the rest. Like we all wrestle each other, which is a super super cool opportunity that like I'm really glad to have.
Yeah, and it seems like a great opportunity for you to grow your career as well. And Mallory, we want to wish you the best of luck on your next career and venture elsewhere. One question: what are you pursuing in terms of academics?
So I'm actually going to study. My undergrad is going to be biochemistry, and I'm going to get a minor in meat science. And then after my undergrad, I'm planning on applying to a veterinary school to get my doctorate in that and become a large animal vet.
Awesome. It sounds like you got a nice future ahead of you. Mallory, thank you for taking time to talk about the Jay County wrestling season for you. Good luck in your collegiate career.
Thank you.
I'm here with the head boys basketball coach of the New Haven Bulldogs, Brandon Appleton. Coach, how are things going for you?
Not too bad, man. How about you?
Good. So, Coach, many of you know you from your time at Angola, a lot of history and a lot of success with Angola, mainly with the girls, but also with the boys as well, including a run to the conference tournament championship game last year. But now an opportunity came over the offseason with New Haven, another school with a lot of history of success in basketball, now succeeding a great run under Coach Stevens. Brandon, what made New Haven such an intriguing offer for you?
The new opportunity, a chance to work with some different kids and just kind of test the waters and see what you're capable of as a coach. You know, it's a chance to grow and learn. And we as teachers love those opportunities to continue that. So they had some great administration that really made it pretty convincing.
Mm-hmm. And a change of scenery comes new opportunities and, frankly, a new conference to be a part of. So, what is it like being able to coach these group of kids in New Haven? A lot of talent, a lot of athletes that have a lot of potential.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've been very. It's been awesome how the kids have accepted me and willing to do the things that we have asked in terms of how hard we want to play and just the difference in myself from Coach Stevens. And their trust that they've been willing to put into me has been awesome. Couldn't have asked for more, and just excited for the opportunities ahead. We stumbled a little bit last night, but luckily DeKalb knocked off Huntington North for us, so we're still right there in the driver's seat with Columbia City. So hopefully Leo can help us out, and we can take care of our last two here, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk about the game later on, but I do want to talk about leading up to that weekend. So you are currently 99 in the season, 4-1 in conference play. You're still sitting pretty good in the conference, but I think the win against Woodland to start the season obviously was a big confidence boost for this team that had a chance to win it last year, came up short last season. You're able to do it this time around this year, and then you got a rare win against Homestead to kick things off in the season, then obviously a big win against DeKalb to really send a statement in the NEA as well as Belmont. What are some things you've liked so far that's kind of helped your team build that confidence? And then who have been some players that you've been impressed with this year?
Oh man, there's been a lot. We're a very young team. I only really have two seniors and one that gets quite a few minutes for us, but we have definitely showed our ability in terms of what we are capable of at moments throughout the year, like you mentioned in those games. And we've also had other games where I feel like we have definitely shown our youth and our lack of maturity at times because of just having a young team and the natural growing pains that come along with it. But those were great opportunities. I mean, anytime you get a chance to win games on the road, with the schedule that we have, we'll take as many of those as we can. And when you can get a good Homestead team at any environment, you'll take it. Coach Johnson does a great job getting his kids prepared, and just was proud of how our kids responded on those nights and the things that we gained from those wins. And the struggles of coaching is now how do we make that a consistent effort every time we step on the floor.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about just two seniors on this team. You got a lot of sophomores on this team with Tavar Baskerville, who's the point guard on your New Haven team, your leading scorer, really the facilitator of this New Haven offense. You got a nice forward in Lavelle Ledbetter, who's shown some flashes of potential at times. Jadrian Easel's a nice shooter on this team, just really scratching the surface of what he can bring. And then Jamal Lawrence is one of your seniors, and I was really impressed with what I've seen from them this year, especially with the Gallup game. Really took off in that second half against DeKalb, and even against in last night's game against Columbia City, showed some moments as well. Talk about what Jamal Lawrence brings to New Haven, especially to help a team that has a young point guard to get things settled in with that offense.
Yeah, Jamal does a great job in terms of his intensity and energy that he brings. They kind of follow as his energy goes. So um, he's been a great kid for us. We've really had to. He's set the tone in terms of we as a program feel like we are out to prove things to a degree. They had us picked last in the conference to start the preseason, and not a lot of people knew what was going to come about with some of our sophomores. And I remember going through the interview process and the film that I was watching. They were making these, at the time, freshmen were making plays that I was watching in varsity games that really kind of opened the door for me in terms of really considering it as a potential job. And kudos to all those kids you mentioned. Baskerville has the potential to be the best point guard in our city when he's playing the way he is capable of. Our junior, Jadrian Ezel, has matured immensely in the months since June when I joined, and how he is working even harder now on defense and becoming more of a complete player. He is extremely gifted with his ability to jump and shoot the basketball that we're just trying to bring more consistency to. And same with Lavelle. He is he's one of those engines that just never stops. He can be at times very similar to Jamal in bringing that energy for our team and leading in that way. But his physicality and his overall competitiveness, I think, is something that we truly love most about him. And it's been a fun ride. And you get another junior, DeMarcus, right in there, and he's just kind of that rock. He's not the vocal guy. He's none of that. He just head down and doing whatever work needs to be done. So been very proud of how far I think they have come. I'm excited to see maybe how much further they can reach. I think there's still more that we can accomplish as a group.
And still plenty of games to show that as we reach the final month of the regular season. Coach, I do unfortunately have to mention the game against Columbia City because that was a big game, and I know I hyped it up a little bit there, mostly for the good reasons, of course. This was a big game for the Northeast State, and obviously the Huntington North game was on your mind a little bit because of the implications there. But got off to a slow start in that first quarter, down 21-8 after one. I know I had, based on my statistics, I think your team missed 9 of the first 10 shots of that game. So it was not an ideal start nonetheless. But you have to love the fight with this team, this New Haven team, because especially with Jamal Lawrence helping this team come back, had this game tied twice in the second half. But Jamal Lawrence being fouled out definitely didn't help things for your team. And then you just had a lot of mistakes in the second half, a lot of turnovers, missed layups, some missed free throws, just some missed opportunities that could have went easily the other direction. But, Coach, as you prepare for this week, and we'll talk about the Huntington North game in a matter of moments, what are some things you can take away from the Columbia City and that you can learn from as you get to the stretch of the season?
I think a lot of those things you mentioned, it's nice to know that, if we're down 10 or 12 points, doesn't mean we're out of any ball games. We have the ability to score at a very fast clip, especially when our defense really helps to drive our offense. I think we have matured in such a way where if we play defense the way we are capable of, it really helps propel what we can do offensively as a group. It helps get us out in transition, just get in a good rhythm offensively in terms of what we're capable of doing. And we had found a couple mismatches, and it's game to game. It happened to be in Columbia City. Jamal was a good mismatch for us, getting to the basket. And when we found that, it allows other guys opportunities, because either he's going to draw a double team or there's going to be attention paid somewhere else. So I'm proud of our kids in terms of we are now starting to think basketball on a bigger level in those big moments. So like you said, we have to execute down the stretch a little better. We have to avoid some foul trouble and things like that to help get us to the finish line, because I felt very good if Jamal does play that fourth quarter for the entire way, I think we're in a much different position there at the end of the game, having a chance to, maybe just be a possession here or there where it could have been the difference in the win or loss.
Yeah, and the offense started to improve in the second half. So I think Lawrence was greatly missed in the second half, even though Ledbetter helped a little bit in the fourth quarter. But you could tell you missed Lawrence on the floor. And I do want to ask this real quick: how difficult was it to defend a player like Landon Richmond in the post? You don't see a lot of forwards like Landon these days, and he definitely gave you a little bit of trouble inside. But what did you think? How did your team handle the way in which Landon was able to get to the post and whatnot, and then the elusiveness of Stratton Fuller?
Yeah, I think Columbia City does a fantastic job of how they run those players into the post. Number 11 is more of an old school type of a post player in terms of the way he plays. And, we told our kids all week long, this is what's going to happen. And to Columbia City's credits, they run enough misdirection, and next thing you know, they catch you asleep, and number 11's got you sealed on the inside for a good post position. And I think we had some matchups early in the game that maybe were not in our favor, that we had just misunderstood from a coach to player perspective. So that's on me. And then we kind of made some adjustments as the game unfolded. I think kind of gave us some better matchups and really helped give us the opportunity to get back in the ball game. And, it's a chance to learn how teams are going to execute a little bit differently than what some of the other schools that we have seen on our schedule. So it's a great chance to learn how we want to defend those teams, those actions, and how we have to play team defense, because we definitely can show spurts where we can turn up the things defensively. And like you said, the first quarter, the shots weren't going, but our defense really wasn't clicking. We were just out of sync in that first quarter. And against those good teams like Columbia City, Huntington North, you can't give them a 21-8 lead and, hope for the best there at the end. You gotta earn every possession, and we didn't do that early.
Yeah, and teams like Columbia City, Huntington North, they always have that one other player that doesn't always get the big name headline, but they're always going to come there to haunt you in the end. And Owen Marshall was another guy that down the stretch, he really made some big shots. And I jokingly say he was a cheat code for Columbia City in the fourth quarter. He really helped the Columbia City win that game in the fourth quarter and whatnot. But now I want to shift over to Huntington North. And Coach Thompson, he's another coach with a great track record. This is a great history of basketball down in Huntington, Indiana. And obviously, they are coming off a 2 straight losses of conference play to East Noble and DeKalb. But this Huntington North team is going to be a big challenge. Like you mentioned earlier, they got Ethan Zahn, who's averaging 21 points a game, and he set the school record for most points in a game with 42 against Southwood. So right away, you're already thinking this is a matchup nightmare. Potentially, in terms of trying to about how do we can contain Ethan Zahn. They got Titus Schultz, who can also have his spurts. Blaine Freiberger's another post player that he can come up and make some big shots there as well. What are your early impressions with Huntington North as you prepare for this matchup?
Oh, yeah. Coach Thompson does a great job. I've followed him for many years. He used to coach at my alma mater in Peru. So I've known him for many years. They do a great job of executing their things, similar to that of Columbia City and of Norwell. And when you have a couple kids like they do that can shoot the basketball the way they can, it really opens up the floor for maybe some drivers and some post players that they have that are solid basketball players in terms of the plays they make. They're smart. They understand how to screen and how to move. So it'll be a great challenge, and it's nice going against a kid who is averaging 20 plus points a game. It's definitely going to be a challenge that our guys will be excited to do whatever they can to hold him under his average, to really make him work for everything he gets. And if we can find ways to control tempo with how we play defense and really get out and use our athleticism, I think we can really make things difficult on them. And that's what we're going to shoot for. And Coach Thompson, they have a week to prepare just like we do. They're going to be well prepared for us and anything we're going to throw at them. So we just got to keep working to find little details that we can get better and make sure we take care of the basketball the right way and find ways to get rebounds and extra possessions whenever we can.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, with your team, they're going to be extra motivated to try to contain Zahn and the athleticism of Huntington North. I guess my next question would then be not only for just this game, but also going towards the end of the regular season. How do you want to go about these next few weeks so that for your team, not only you're going to have the opportunity to win the conference championship, but to showcase that you're moving the right direction as you head to the playoffs and you're playing in a 3A sectional this year that has Marion in it. But how do you want to be able to keep the confidence up for your team, but still be able to refine things to keep your team as well positioned as possible to be playing your best basketball at the right time?
Right now, a big one with that is simply getting kids healthy. We have, I feel like, have just not been able to get healthy. Every week, there's a different kid down being sick. Last week was Jamal and Lavelle were both out for extended days with practices missed and just not feeling well. We got one out that I got a message about today who has now got strep throat and will be out till Wednesday. That's a big piece to what we do defensively. So, I think that's the big thing. I have been very impressed with our group, especially since the holidays, where we have just been day in and day out just stacking up good practices where they're doing much better with their attention to detail and focus during practice. And you can see that the things we are teaching them are starting to sink in more. And as you continue to stack those days, those little increments that we want as coaches to see improvement from your team are really starting to get there. So we can focus more now on execution within sets or actions that we're running. We can focus more on some details in terms of what offenses they're going to see from other teams and how we want to defend them and what are some options if this way defending them is not going to work, and really kind of teach them the game of basketball the way it's supposed to be taught. And, hats off to the boys. They've done a great job of allowing us to teach them that way, and been very, very fun practices here the last couple months.
This is Brandon Appleton, the head boys basketball coach of the New Haven Bulldogs, as they are scratching, clawing, they're fighting their way to try to win that Northeast State Championship, which has not happened since the conference's inaugural season 2016, where we had a 4-team share of the conference that first year. But my final question for you, Coach, is a little bit more of your time with New Haven so far. Obviously, this is your first year coaching the New Haven Bulldogs, but what has been your impressions being around this community, being around the people of New Haven basketball? How's it been like being a part of the New Haven culture so far?
Oh, it's been great. The people who we work with there have done a great job of really making me and my wife and kids feel like family when we are there, and just proud to be able to try to move this great basketball tradition a little bit further ahead. They love the sport there, and we're excited with the change that we're trying to bring with the culture and help them reach what they all, everybody wants to win, and we want to try to continue that legacy there. And I think it'd be a great start here to year one if we could sneak our way into this conference crown and show people that we're for real at New Haven. And it's definitely a fun journey, something that I will definitely cherish for a lot of years.
These are memories that you're still going to be making as we are getting down to the final stretch of the season for Hoosier Stereo Madness, whatever you want to call it, gets underway for the playoffs. Coach, any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, sir. I appreciate the coverage, man. I remember back on those days with the girls basketball, all the coverage you gave us, and it's nice to actually get a chance to speak with you again. And next time, hopefully, we'll shake hands and catch up.
All right, Coach. Hopefully, maybe one day we will cross paths. Coach,
Absolutely.
Thank you for taking the time to talk about New Haven Boys basketball. Good luck in your matchup against the Huntington North Vikings.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
Well, that's going to do it for the Talk Around the Corner. Thank you to our two guests for coming on the show to talk about their seasons up to this point, especially for Mallory Winter, who concludes her high school wrestling career at Jay County, winning 4 state championships. All right. So tune in next week where we will have recaps of girls basketball sectionals and boys wrestling regionals. We'll also recap what happened with the NEA boys basketball race, as well as whether or not Woodland has put themselves in a nice position to win the ACAC. Keep in mind, the NECC is still very much in play, so there's still a lot to talk about before we get to March and transitioning into the spring. So for my name is Sam Frick. So long. Thank you for watching the ANEC Sports Podcast. Please like this video and like the page ANEC Sports on YouTube. Let people know that the ANEC Sports is on YouTube. Also, like our Facebook page at Around the Northeast Corner and follow either Around the Northeast Corner and Sam Frick on Twitter/X. We're also on Instagram as well. Just look for ANEC Sports or Around the Northeast Corner and you will find us there. You can also follow the man himself, Sam Frick, the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, for other additional content. This has been an Around the Northeast Corner presentation.